What conspiracy theory is too logical to be ignored? Welcome mats were invented by vampires to bypass the vampires have to be invited into your home rule. Dude. That's genius. A lot of rich and powerful people didn't want Epstein alive. As far as I know and believe, Epstein got caught. So he wanted to snitch as much as possible to save his own ass. Certain powerful people didn't like it. So they suicided him. There is even a verb for it now. To Epstein someone, to kill someone in a manner that it looks like a suicide. For example, he wanted to snitch. So he got Epsteined by the elite. It's unclear who did it. But all sides of political spectrum came together that day and agreed that there were too many coincidences for it to be just a suicide. Especially with his deal. Which is why people are keeping a very close eye on Ghislaine Maxwell. Clothing stores don't give women's clothing pockets so women will buy purses. That's a fact. Scooby lived way too long for a dog. And he could basically talk. He's clearly a figment of Shaggy's imagination, or it's some kind of elaborate Weekend at Bernie's speep. Canonically, it's because he's descended from ancient alien spirits from another dimension. Scooby-Doo _mystery_ incorporated that possess the bodies of animals. No, really. That's the official reason for why he can talk, and everything else he does. Undefined. Was this canon published in a time when it wasn't acceptable to say we were extremely high and made a cartoon for other extremely high people? Flight 980 was carrying drugs or something, and multiple governments have butchered the investigation to try and hide it. Also, there's like some trafficking ring or serial killers in remote areas of Malaysia aiming at tourists. Then when the police investigate, they say they just went missing. It's a likely story, but at this stage I think I've heard way too many cases of tourists apparently deciding to just wander into the jungle in their underwear to really buy it. Sex trafficking. Ransoms. Literal blood cults ran by cartels. There is a reason you need to do a lot of research before going somewhere completely new. Too many tourists just expect the world and society to function the same everywhere and for everything to be handled nice and cleanly. Those same naive, arrogant and ignorant folks are the ones who hop into the fake taxis and trust the helpful strangers in a community where culturally they do not behave in that way normally. Research. Know the customs and the locals, the warning signs specific to those areas. Yeah, the book 2666 points out the inordinate disappearances of young ladies in Mexico. Trillions of dollars of Pentagon budget cannot be traced. Where did it go? What was it used for? Stargate. Duh. I think the president of Mexico didn't catch COVID. Or that he actually caught it and he's just using it as a break to avoid press or something for accepting the Russian donation of vaccines. I also think he's plotting to perpetuate his party or even himself in power. I suspected the same about Trump, tbh. I thought his COVID diagnosis was a ruse to help downplay the seriousness of the virus. That there are still unthinkable government programs like COINTELPRO or MKUltra going on. Both of those incredibly dark and completely unethical programs still exist in one form or another. COINTELPRO never really died even though it was exposed. I know that MKUltra style torture / mind control / mind manipulation type experiments are said to be still active, according to journalist Michelle Shepard in her Well Done podcast on MKUltra. I believe there is a lot more than this going on too. Such as the targeting of journalist Susie Dawson. Or the illegal harassment / experimentation using advanced technologies described by UN Special Rapporteur on Torture Nils Melzer. Check out the E-Advance edited version report on torture. He mentions the history of MKUltra. New tactics of harassment. The fact that a lot of contemporary harassment is sponsored by governments. And that victims are rarely believed or able to get any kind of help. He describes psychological torture / cyber torture / no-touch torture as a growing reality in the world that is basically going on unchecked. I would imagine many, perhaps even most, large governments have programs like this going on. The logic is simple: if they're doing it and we're not, we're at a disadvantage. So we should definitely do it. 2. I would imagine genetic engineering and human cloning are going full steam ahead behind major secrecy and closed doors. And much more than that too. One of the major frontiers for the future of war and population control is the use of neuroweapons. Brain-to-computer interfaces. Internet of bodies. The ability to send signals directly to the brain. Or to read brainwave information. Or even to influence minds outside of the target's control_C. Governments have recognized long ago the importance of understanding the brain and have fairly recently gone into hyperdrive on understanding how our brains operate_initiative. AI is another terrifying thing that is going to be used to study and eventually interact directly with our brains. The potential robotization of our species is just around the corner, and I feel like almost no one is talking about this. The degree to which this can be done today can be debated. I would wager that whatever can be readily proven is still behind whatever the strongest militaries on Earth have already developed. And that this is the future of our species, and it's better that people start to realize this before this stuff gets way too out of control. Which it already has. If you're skeptical, just look at what Professor James Giordano is talking about. He's a DARPA guy. He knows a whole lot about what's in development as far as neuro-warfare goes. There are all kinds of frightening dystopian concepts in development right now. Worlds that Huxley or Orwell could not have imagined. Hang on tight, everyone. This is scary stuff. But it's better that we learn about this stuff than just let it overtake our lives without even knowing any of this was on the horizon. Neurowarfare, which is generally a heinous form of overt or covert harassment or assault, already exists. I include in this neuroweapons, directed energy weapons, and any other form of harmful electronic harassment. There's nowhere to go in the world for help if this is happening to you. Even if you're a CIA agent. That's right, CIA agents are seeking help to deal with wounds from these invisible weapons that their own agencies are barely even recognizing. My friend thinks some Amazon delivery vans are not actual Amazon delivery vans, but the government or something. No one questions the Amazon delivery vans. They're up and down your street every day. All day. Sometimes more than once a day. Do you really stop to see where they go? Do you even bat an eye when you see one? Nope. Part of the scenery. No one would notice one quickly whipping into the driveway of the Jansons 5 doors down, busting inside, and pulling out 3 bound figures before swiftly throwing them in the van and speeding off. Not even in broad daylight. South Park did it? Not exactly the same thing. Just funnier. And with the UPS man. It all started with the milkman. The milkman said, "Do you want that milk pasteurized?" Stole this from Lowe's Takes Conspiracy subreddit. But chapsticks are round, so they roll away and you have to buy more. The I like turtles kid was actually a turtle. Is he the same kid that could do 30? What? Where did you hear that? Some people believe government corruption and negligence to be a conspiracy. Corruption certainly is. When an official and a lobbyist get together and talk about how it will be very much in the official's personal interest to enact specific kind of policy. That is, in fact, conspiracy. It's just so common we don't see it as unusual. Also, we don't prosecute officials or rich people. Investigate 3/11. Current conspiracy theories are intentionally started by Russia to weaken the US. I'd expand it to weaken all Western states. We have the same SPEEP in Germany you have over there. I think a lot of it was first tried in Europe before coming to the States. Clearly. That Finland isn't real. I've never been there. And don't know anyone who has. Am I a joke to you? Every Finnish dude in their mind because they don't want to comment. P.S. I am from Finland. The mob orchestrating Kennedy's assassination. I like the theory where the first shot was the real attempted assassination, but the actual shot that killed him was from the Secret Service guy in front of him fumbling while drawing his weapon and firing backwards accidentally. Yes, I heard this one too. Lee Harvey Oswald was not the only assassin. If he even was one. That Prescott Bush, patriarch of the Bush dynasty, is partially responsible for the economic powerhouse of the Nazis. That's more of a deliberately forgotten fact. Isn't that all real conspiracies are? Truth hidden and obscured from the past to protect the present status quo. The CIA killed JFK. There's just so much confusion about the actual assassination, and they had a big motive. Remember when conspiracy theories used to be fun? That alien life forms exist. There is proof and evidence. Yet people still don't believe they are out there and or on this planet hiding. It's kinda hard to believe that we are the only planet with beings. You are 100% correct. It's stupid to believe that we are. R/Bird Serentrial. I give it less than 5 years until people running for Congress unironically believe this. Bold of you to think Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't bought this hook, line and sinker. The JFK assassination. I'm not saying what happened, but something sketchy happened. Bullets don't curve like that except in the movie Wanted. I personally prefer the theory that one of the Secret Service agents in the car behind accidentally fired his rifle when reacting to the first bullet, and it was the shot that killed him. With this theory, it involves nothing but incompetence and a subsequent cover-up between a few agents who knew. Which to me is a lot more believable than a lot of other theories. I don't know if we'll ever know, but this rings true to me. Someone smarter than me once said, never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. Cover-up of Las Vegas shooting. Covering up what aspect of it? That Kurt Cobain was killed by Courtney Love. There's loads of evidence. Even one guy said that he was offered $50K to kill her but declined. He was killed on the way to court. Assassination of JFK. It's sort of a conspiracy, I guess. The fact that we are in 3 different wars actively at the moment and it's never talked about or brought up. All the different versions that are thrown our way. Keeping us stale, stagnant and stupid. That FDR knew about Pearl Harbor beforehand. That's easily debunked when you read FDR's memoirs and he frets over how to sell the war in the Pacific to justify the war in Europe. He even notes that Hitler's declaration of war relieved him of this burden. That's not really debunking it. It's not as if he's write down in memoirs he considered likely to be published or at least pored over by historians that he deliberately let an attack happen on American sailors. I'm not saying I believe it to be true. But just he said no isn't debunking anything. The SpongeBob skin and squillium is a fruit theory. I don't know. But I do know one thing. The pizza parlor didn't even have a basement. Kids separated at the border wall to feed the sex trafficking industry. The conspiracy theory of Islam originally being non-Trinitarian Jewish Christianity. Not heard of this one, but I have in the last month been very into early Christianity and the many sects that existed before the Orthodox was formed. A lot of crazy things could have happened. The FBI is tapping our phones and listening to us. Too much evidence. I'm excited to scroll further down in this to see where the insanity line gets crossed. I imagine it's somewhere between vaccines and the moon landing. There is a cure for cancer, but Big Pharma doesn't want to lose their chemo/radiation etc. Revenue. Kyrgyzstan's razor. Does this conspiracy theory affect rich people? Theory. There's a secret cure for cancer. Q. Do rich people still die from cancer? A. Yes. So it's unlikely that there's a secret cure for cancer. Steve Jobs would have gotten it. Didn't Jobs reject modern treatments? Lee Harvey Oswald was not alone. That Michael Jordan's retirement to play in the MLB was an unofficial suspension by David Stern for his illegal gambling. Jim Belushi murdered his brother to steal his roles. Most mattress stores are a front for various organized crime groups to launder money through the US financial system. The last US president was a KGB puppet. Epstein is nothing compared to JFK. WTC 7. Half the people are stupider than average. And that's on purpose. That most conspiracy theories like flat earth and lizard people are promoted by intelligence agencies so that if some dodgy operation gets leaked they can just call it a conspiracy theory and it gets lumped in with flat earth. So few people believe it. The fact that in the 20th century the same events happen with a global pandemic etc. I'm pretty sure it's a meme that the exact type of events happened on the same years. Just different centuries. The only one missing being the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor. Although I could be wrong. What about that whole World War I thing? Pretty sure we did not have a global war like that in 2015. Maybe it happened in space. Avril Lavigne is dead. Taylor Swift might be gay. Cynically. I think she'd sell more albums saying so. I don't get the point of pretending otherwise if it's true. Other than her first album being treated as country. Her audience hasn't exactly been the crusty evangelical crowd. There's no footage of an airplane hitting the Pentagon despite it being a heavily surveilled building. I was under the belief that plane was shot down by the RAF before it could even see the Pentagon. The Royal Air Force? Aliens. In terms of conspiracies, I always try to figure out motive and how tight the circle of people could be to pull it off. I'm not one to usually indulge in conspiracy theories. But honestly I'm entirely convinced Boris Johnson contracted COVID. Him becoming ill garnered a lot of sympathy for him and the Tories, who were facing a lot of criticism on their handling of COVID. It acted as a buffer period where news outlets and talking heads felt uncomfortable talking negatively about a sick man. Enough to lose momentum. At least for a bit. Also, to conceal it, you wouldn't really need a large circle of people in the know. Personal physician. Maybe a loved one. And then some botched virus testing. Boom. You're in a private room for a week and people are no longer slagging you off for being Speep at your job. And it helps that Johnson always looks like Speep anyway. So on the tail end he'd look like he's been through the wars. Are you saying you're convinced or not convinced? Emilia Earhart was shot down by the Japanese. Her plane was flying around that part and the US government might have sent her off to spy. It's pretty well known her navigator and her was sent to spy. Plus, didn't she get eaten by crabs?